I believe there are four main ways that anxiety is caused. So, therefore, four more main ways that you can treat it. So, I want you to understand this because you need to understand which of these things are causing your anxiety or if it is a combination of them. Because often where people go wrong with anxiety is they'll only look at one of these avenues and not the others. And then that's why the problem doesn't get completely resolved. So the first one I think is the most obvious, which is your environment or your lifestyle situation is actually stressful. It's actually making you feel unsafe. And therefore, you are having a very normal reaction to that abnormal environment and you're feeling anxious. So rather than having an anxiety problem, you have a problem with how you're living and the environment that you're living in. And you need to resolve that. And when you do, the anxiety will go away. Another one is dysfunctional breathing. So, we used to believe that anxiety and fear came from the amygdala in your brain, but they then did a study on a girl that didn't have an amygdala. So, she'd never had a fear response in her life. And then they exposed her to pure carbon dioxide, CO2. When they did this, she had a big fear response or anxiety. So, what we learned from this is when a human senses too much carbon dioxide, we feel fear or anxiety. So, how would this happen to a person? Well, when you breathe, the mechanism that tells you to take another breath is not actually because your oxygen levels are low. It's because your carbon dioxide levels get to a certain point and you have a little receptor that says, when we get to this point, it's time to take another breath. The problem is that these receptors can become too sensitive and you can actually overbreathe. So you're taking more breaths in a minute than you should be taking, for example. Now, as a result of this, your carbon dioxide levels are then high and you might be living in this constant state of anxiety and fear. So if this is you, you need to get your breathing looked at. Some obvious signs that you might have dysfunctional breathing is one, you breathe from your mouth rather than your nose, or you snore at night because that's another indicator that you're likely mouth breathing while you sleep. This will often cause overbreathing. Another really easy thing to check is when you take a breath, does your tummy and your rib cage move first, or does your chest and your shoulders? So if you breathe dysfunctionally, what you'll notice is your chest and your shoulders will come up at the start of your breath rather than the tummy and the diaphragm. There are also other tests you can do to check the functionality of your breathing. So if this is you and you have anxiety, I definitely recommend doing those little tests to seeing if this could be the cause of your anxiety or at least a player in it. The next is just a physical cause. So that might look like inflammation in your brain, gut health issues, hormone issues, thyroid issues. Any of these physical health problems can create mental health problems like anxiety. So, to deal with something like this, it's likely you need to look at your nutrition and your environment in the sense of things like toxins and all that sort of stuff. So, again, if when would I say to look at this? There are different physical markers that might indicate it, which I'll give you information to somewhere else. But another reason would just be like, well, if you know that your nutrition is pretty poor, it's probably an easy place to start. But also, if it's like, I don't really have a good reason to be anxious, but I am quite anxious anyway, that can be a big indicator that there's something physical going on. And then finally, it's your nervous system. So again, I'm not going to go into the full depths of nervous system for this video. I'll talk about that elsewhere. But when a nervous system is dysregulated and you're someone that gets stuck in a sympathetic nervous system state quite often, you can experience a lot of anxiety. So essentially, that means your nervous system has become very sensitive and it's often misinterpreting things in your day to day as dangerous or threatening when they're not. And then this anxiety is coming up. So if that is you, you need to understand what's dysregulated your nervous system. You need to heal and deal with those emotions and traumas and experiences that have caused that dysregulation. And you need to do things daily to start healing and regulating your nervous system. That might look like things like breathing, meditation, grounding in nature, cold water therapy. So, like I said, these are what I believe the four ways that anxiety can be caused. And it doesn't have to be just one, it can be a combination of all four. So, if you are struggling, I want you to consider all of these factors and explore all of these factors in your journey to heal your anxiety.